Welcome to the committee. Would you identify yourself for the record?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Greg Cook, and I am the Executive Director of the Minnesota Board of Private Detectives and Protective Agents. And I have with me today Kia Vu, my Administrative Assistant.
Hello.
All right. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I provided you with a handout, and I'm just going to do a brief PowerPoint in which I will highlight some of that information. It is our agency's responsibility to regulate and provide critical oversight to the 11,600 private security and investigative professionals here in Minnesota. By regulating, we work towards ensuring those providing security and investigative services meet requirements set forth in Minnesota statute and administrative rule. This includes, but is not limited to, making sure license holders and their employees do not have any disqualifying criminal records, are receiving required training, including armed training, and are credentialed properly. The first law written for private detectives in Minnesota was 1945. The board was established in 1974. The board is made up of 5 members that are appointed by the Department of Public Safety Commissioner. I have listed here and in your handout the laws that govern private security and investigators. In regard to how we are structured, we are somewhat unique. As Minnesota Statute 214.04 states, we are generally under the umbrella of the Department of Public Safety. DPS provides us housing, specific administrative support, financial advisement, and human resource services. Anything needed outside of that comes out of our budget. The most important stakeholders are the people of Minnesota. I came from the private side 6 years ago, and I can tell you it's very motivating knowing that the general public is ultimately who you work for. The license holders depend on us to process their applications and renewals so that they do not lose contracts and can keep their people employed. We also work frequently with law enforcement, mainly dealing with unlicensed activity, police impersonators, investigating violations of our license holders, and assisting them when someone from the industry is involved with one of their investigations. Displayed in your handout are our core functions. I am not going to go through all of them, but would like to point out a couple of the most important. The application process is extensive. The application itself is very detailed. It requires numerous documents and information provided by the applicant. Our agency's job is to assist the applicant to ensure it is complete and verify the information provided. Part of this is conducting a background check. As we do not have any online software systems, all documentation is provided hard copy and reviewed and stored manually. As with applications, renewals are extensive and provided in hard copy format. Renewals are every 2 years. We again verify information provided and conduct another background check. The investigations we conduct mainly involve violations of statute, complaints, unlicensed activity, and police impersonators. Another statutory responsibility is ensuring the license holders and their employees are receiving qualified training to meet their continuing education requirements. Per statute, license holders and their employees must obtain 12 hours of initial pre-assignment training and 6 hours of continuing education every year after that. Armed guards must receive an additional 6 hours specific to weapons, alternate use of force, first aid, and CPR. This includes annual certification on the firing range for those who carry a firearm. We currently have certified 201 training providers and 1,416 approved courses that are renewed every 2 years. Our agency reviews each course and instructor credentials and presents them to the board for approval. The vast majority of our license holders are retired and current law enforcement and military. Since 2012, we have gone from 282 to 359 license holders, which is a 27% increase. Please note that these license holder numbers are deceiving. Each license holder may employ as many people as they want under their license. We have some license holders that employ over 2,300 people. In fact, a very important number to know is these license holders employ over 11,600 people, up from 9,000 the last time I presented to this committee. This is the number of individuals our agency actually regulates. We do not just deal with 359 license holders. Our agency works to verify the background check, training, credentialing, and respond to inquiries for each one of those 11,600 people. As you can see from the slide, the vast majority of our work is done on the security side. 98.4%, or 11,440 of the employees of license holders work in the security industry versus the 190, or 1.6%, that work on the private investigation side. Regulating the security side is what uses up our resources. Overwhelmingly, the violations we deal with are on this side of the equation. This is where I find the name of our agency somewhat deceiving as well. The current title puts an emphasis on private detectives. This conjures up images of what is unrealistically portrayed in movies and TV shows. People think the term protective agent refers to bodyguards. I have proposed to the board to change our name to better reflect what we do. Right now, the front runner is Security and Investigative Regulatory Agency. This will take some statute revision, and I don't realistically see this taking place until next year. Displayed on the screen and in your handout are some of the services and facilities that are protected by private security. These services are critical to the overall security involved in the state of Minnesota. What people do not always realize is private security assists in providing essential public safety services, as law enforcement can't be everywhere. Nationally, there is a 3-to-1 ratio of security to police officers. It's estimated 13-to-1 in downtown Minneapolis. It is important to note that private security is having an increasing role with deterrence and prevention of terrorism. Frequently, they are finding themselves in the position of first responders. Recent tragic events, such as what occurred in Paris and Las Vegas, has shown the importance of private security as they played vital roles in responding. Private security assists law enforcement in submitting suspicious activity reports for further investigation. Private security protection include not only local, state, and federal critical infrastructure accounts, but also private utility company facilities as well. So you can better understand the private investigation industry, I'm displaying some of the services our licensed private investigators provide. A common misconception is that they only follow around cheating spouses. This is not the main source of income for the industry. As you can see from other types of services, elder abuse investigations, identity theft, cybercrime, insurance fraud, and locating missing children are some of the types of services you don't hear about as often. These services are requested by and a benefit to the public, businesses, and government entities. Note that the importance of regulating this industry is that these entities obtain and provide sensitive information that can have a significant effect on businesses and personal lives. In regard to compliance, we have found some concerning results with audits we have been conducting with some of our security providers. Unlike some other states, we leave it up to the license holder to ensure that their employees have cleared through a criminal background check, have received the required training, and have issued the proper credentials. They then self-report this to us on a log they submit every 2 years at renewal time. We then review this information for compliance. Over the past year, we had to conduct several large-scale violation investigations. In the process, we developed an audit program. These audits are done at the direction of the board when serious violations have been discovered either through the renewal process or reported to us. In the past year, we have audited records of 3,731 security personnel. We found that 22% had background violations, 32% had training violations. The board has taken appropriate action when these violations are discovered. The one that got the most media attention was our investigation and audit involving security at U.S. Bank Stadium. I had to testify in front of the Government Finance Committee on that investigation. Another situation occurred at an event related to the Super Bowl. The reality with these investigations are that we are reactive, not proactive. Currently, the legislature has appropriated our agency $192,000 annually. All revenue from applications, renewals, administrative fees, and penalties is placed in the general fund. After staffing costs, including payroll and benefits, our agency is left with $9,000 to pay for such items as board per diem and mileage, office supplies, computers, software licenses, equipment rental, minute cost, Office of Administrative Hearings, and training and development for staff. The current budget allows for 2 full-time positions. That would be my administrative assistant, Kia Vu, and myself. I do have a couple of part-time staffers that we have been able to utilize if I had salary savings from having no staff for approximately 4 months in 2017. Come July 1st, without a budget increase, there will be no other funding for part-time temporary positions, which had helped out tremendously during the audit process. The governor's budget recommendation is to add another staff member. This would enhance our critical oversight in many ways. The most valuable resource we have are labor hours. Everything we do is broken down into units of time. It takes a certain amount of time to process applications, process renewals, investigate violations, and other things I have pointed to in this presentation. Currently, with a staff of 2, the vast majority of our time is committed to applications, renewals, officer changes, and the large volume of inquiries we respond to. In fact, staff has consistently been putting in overtime to complete these items. The challenge is when we are involved in legal issues, whether with a violation, a complaint, or unlicensed activity. We produce a number of extensive and detailed objective reports to the board so that they make important, informed decisions regarding license holders. As we put many hours into an investigation, we then have to put many more into the legal process part of the equation. It is important to note that if the board either implements a fine over $499, revokes a license, suspends a license, denies a license application, denies a renewal, or decertifies a training course, the person involved has a right to an Office of Administrative Contested Case hearing per Minnesota Chapter 14. Our budget pays for the review by OAH and those proceedings. Those here involved in the legal system can appreciate the preparation, research, and due diligence involved in working through the process. It involves extensive labor hours. With additional staff, we can work towards some long-stalled projects, which includes, but is not limited to, statute and rule revision, website enhancement, online application and renewal system, and data integration. I would note that this governor's recommendation is somewhat historic. Other than a couple $1,000s, we can't find a significant governor's recommendation in the history of our agency. That is all I have for you today. I am hoping you are all understanding the importance of this industry and its benefit to public safety and consumer protection. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to hopefully educate some of the newer members, as well as provide a refresher for those I presented to before in regard to our agency and the industry we regulate. I would be more than happy to respond to any questions at this time.
Thank you, Director Cook. Are there any questions? Senator Ralph?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions, Mr. Cook. Looks like you had 22% had background requirement violations, so people in the agency didn't pass a background check, or there was a missing background check, or what was the situation there?
Mr. Chair,
Cook.
Mr. Chair, Senator Ralph, when we conducted an audit on these security providers, it is incumbent upon them to conduct these background checks. Mm-hmm. What we found was, out of those 3,700 people, either they did not conduct a background check on their employee, or we found disqualifying records, some very serious disqualifying records, up until including second-degree murder, crim sex crimes, theft, a lot of assaults. So again, in other states you have a system where the state itself is conducting these background checks. Here in Minnesota, we leave it to a license holder to do it, and then it's up to us to try and make sure they are, if that answers your question.
Yes. And then a follow-up on that, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So I guess what I'm trying to get at here is you accounted for approximately 34% of the industry and found a significant amount of violations, both in training and in the background checks. And I'm concerned, is this an indication that maybe we have an issue with public safety that we need to look at and to maybe look at the way this is being done? I recognize with the small group of people you have, it's kind of difficult for you to go out and do the actual background checks. But I'm getting a sense here that it looks like something might be starting to slip through the cracks, and I'm concerned about that.
Director Cook?
Mr. Chair, Senator Ralph, one could ascertain that we have a public safety concern. I would like to add that so a few years ago, I was by myself with a part-time administrative assistant. As a matter of fact, 2 bienniums ago, I was in front of this committee, and Senator Latz here had the wisdom to help promote to get me a full-time admin position. And what that did was it gave us some wiggle room to look a little deeper into what these license holders were providing on the renewals. I mean, up until that point, we're just processing this stuff. And now that we've developed this audit system and we're having an opportunity to actually look into this, we are just finding these situations. So if you want to look at how other states do this, again, they have the state do these background checks and take care of all this, but it's much huger budgets with much bigger staffs. If we were to have to do background checks on all 11,600 people, you're looking at a staff of 20 to 30 and a budget like 10 million, I think, like Nevada and some other states have.
Just as the last follow-up, first of all, I think you've done a tremendous job here, I have to say, with what you've had. And as I say, I'm concerned if we do have a public safety issue. The last question I have is I noticed you talked about there's some, you collect a fee on your applications, and I don't see any indication of that revenue. Is that just go directly to the general fund and then you get a direct appropriation, or do you actually have a fee that's part of your budget that I don't see reflected here?
Director Cook.
Mr. Chair, Senator Ralph. So I think in my handout we do show our fee structure. And so all the money that we get from applications, the fees, the renewal fees, which is roughly half of the application, and penalties, so on and so forth, all that goes to the general fund. As a matter of fact, all the money we get goes to the general fund, and then it's up to legislature to appropriate back to us, which is now at $192,000. I would like to add something, because I mentioned statute revisions. Something that would help increase those funds are currently, per statute, it states that, the board can set a price or a fee structure for review training material, which is a lot of time, okay? But it also says it has to be done by rule. So in looking at that, we found that it takes like $40,000 to $70,000, give or take, to make a rule change. We don't have that money. So if we could charge some more money to the training aspect of this, $100, whatever it is, do the math, with 201 providers and 1,400 courses, that would be a better source of income. And that is why this statute revision project I'm talking about is so important.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your work. When you talk about 11,440 security guards, 98%, can you tell me what kind of an increase you've seen? I thought you talked about a large increase in security guards over the last biennium or the last little while. Was there a significant increase in security guards in Minnesota?
Director Cook.
Mr. Chair, Senator. Yes, so we get our numbers from the Department of Labor. I can tell you that sometimes when you do an investigation, we actually go through Deed and do a data request to actually see what the employees are. But our best source of information is from the Department of Labor. And so it is broken down, and I could send you the information. They broke it down by what's called an SIC code, and it's security investigations, so on and so forth. So the last time I presented in front of this committee, it was 9,000. The time before that, I believe it was 7,000. Again, I've been here 6 years. We've seen in just the license holders alone a 27% increase. But, we are up to 11, according to the Department of Labor, 11,600 total license holders, 11,400 of those being in the security side.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And why? Why such a large increase? What's your opinion as to why this continues to grow, security?
Director Cook.
Mr. Chair, Senator, it's the economy. Back in 2006, 7, 8, the economy wasn't doing so great. A lot of businesses were putting aside the use of security, so on and so forth. Things started picking up, 2012, 2013. The only thing I can find is the economy. It's also some of the more recent terroristic events. It's also some of the workplace violence issues you've been seeing on the news. I mean, these are things that people are seeing and realizing you can't hire a police officer, at your place of business all the time. And so they are going to security for a lot of these services.
Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Cook, for all your work. And sounds like you need about 5 more FTEs to help with your, not that I'm advocating, I'm just saying, sounds like it's. I see by your PowerPoint that you have a member from the BCA that's on your board, and I'm wondering how you work hand in glove with the BCA as far as your investigations, your background checks, and things like that.
Director Cook.
Mr. Chair, Senator, just to be clear, so we're housed by the Department of Public Safety. That's in 21404. Where they house us is the BCA, and it's also part of the statutes. They have a representative of the BCA that sits on our board, and it either can be the superintendent or he can assign his assistant superintendent. We are not employees of the BCA. We are housed there. I can tell you it's the greatest place in the world to work, and I've never seen a more motivated, dedicated group of people in my life. But we are technically not BCA employees. We are a standalone agency. And so we're kind of similar to Post Board in a lot of ways. We're kind of like the Post Board for the private side. We're kind of standalone agencies, but we get some help from DPS. But BCA, they are there. That's where we're housed.
Mr. Chair, follow up.
Senator Anderson, we have a very lengthy agenda, and it seems like our members are very curious about one agency. So,
well, I got a constituent that just was told today she is a guardian and has been a guardian for the last 10 years, and now has been told that she needs a background check, that which she's had she had a background check done 2 years ago, and it's saying that she has to have another background check. And I was wondering if you get hired by the BCA or work with them to do background checks for this is for the Department of Human Services.
Director Cook.
Mr. Chair, Senator, the background checks are done separately with the BCA. They have a records department there that does the BCA and FBI background checks on the employees. When you say guardian, you mean guardian ad litem or?
A guardian of a young person.
Okay. So, you know, as far as background checks go with our agency, it is strictly for making sure that they don't have disqualifying records and they are qualified to work as a security guard or be a license holder or be a private investigator.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Latz.
I can speak with Senator Anderson about that directly. I've got a bill that I just signed today because I've received a number of complaints from attorneys working in the guardian ad litem field that there's substantial delays in getting the background checks done. It's holding up a lot of court cases. So I'm happy to talk with Senator Anderson and share what we're trying to do. Maybe you can join me on the bill.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you for your presentation. We'll move on to the bills that will be under consideration. Senator Miller.